Join UF Hall of Famer and 14-year NFL vet Shane Matthews every weekday as he brings you all you need to know about your Florida Gators, including news, analysis, and opinions with some of the biggest names in sports. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Or watch us live at 8 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter.
Good morning. It's a live edition of PodUp with Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Hope everyone made it out of the hurricane safely. They say they didn't think it was as bad as they thought. I mean, it was still terrible. Obviously, up North Central Florida wasn't bad at all. Just a little bit of wind and a lot of rain. So we got a good show lined up today. We're thinking about everybody. We're going to bring our good friend Mike Morgan from ESPN SEC Network in today. We're going to talk a little bit of everything, a little NFL, a little Major League Baseball, obviously college football. Good morning, Mike. How you doing, my man?
Good morning, Shane. It's been too long. I've had PodUp withdrawal symptoms. I've seen a therapist, and I'm much better now, but it was a little touch and go there.
Yeah. Mike, before we jump into college football and NFL football, I know you're a baseball guy as well. I know you follow the Braves living up in Atlanta.
Yeah.
But the Mets have advanced to the to try to win the NL pennant. Are you surprised by that?
Yes. I never thought going into the year like the Mets were going to be a threat. It was always Braves, Phillies, Braves, Phillies. And then I started looking at other divisions for the other teams. They've spent a ton of money, the Cohen Group. One thing I will say, and as a former professional athlete, owners are very often eccentric and weird and sometimes not even very good people. But if they spend a lot of money on your team as a player, you respect that if nothing else. Well, he has spent a ton of money, and finally they're getting dividends off that. So no, I think they're a great story. I don't think they're the most talented team, but it's baseball in the postseason. The most talented team rarely wins this. I was here when the Braves won the World Series a few years ago. That was an 88 win team. And then I was also here, of course, when they won the division the last few years before this year, and they got bounced in the first round by Philly. So postseason in baseball is totally a loop. And I will say this, they need to change the format, because if you keep having the top two seeds who get the bye losing because all that time off, baseball's a timing sport. It's not like football, and you put them on the bench for 4 days after they're playing every day for 162. It clearly has had an effect, and I think the whole thing is a little upside down right now.
I would agree with that. You think Lindor wins the MVP? Man, that was just a smooth swing. He hit that grand slam last night.
Beautiful, yeah. I mean, the not the regular season one, but in terms of the NL, that series, yes, and then we'll see how he does in the NLCS. There's a different trophy now for every round, but now he, again, he's another guy they spent a ton of money on, and they weren't seeing the receipts. It just, most of the guys that they broke bank on were not panning out for one reason or another. But now all of a sudden they are, and so are these other guys, these kind of glue guys, like we like to call them, that are not the biggest names or the guys you had the highest expectations for, but they're all coming together at the right time, and that's what it's all about in baseball. It's coming together at the right.
Yeah, and tonight you got Game 4. Tigers lead 2-1 in their series. Yankees are up 2-1 over the Royals. You think the Yankees and the Tigers can close it out today?
Yeah, I'd love to see the Royals do. I mean, really, the Royals and the Tigers are both great stories. But the Royals in particular, I'd love to see them break through. And it's a reminder of when we were kids. George Brett was one of my favorite players, and that rivalry in the postseason back in the early 80s was fantastic. He was interviewed last night. I was watching the game, and it was awfully cool. I met George when I was doing a baseball super regional in Oxford. His son, who wasn't really a player, was going to Ole Miss. So he came in our booth and I interviewed him for like 15 minutes. This is the coolest thing in the world. This guy that I grew up admiring. So I'd love to see the Royals do it, but I think the Yankees are the better team.
JLB on YouTube brought to you by Quality Plum says, do y'all think the Tigers have any chance of winning the World Series? They got pretty good pitching.
Yeah, Scooble is as good as it gets right now, and that's really the name of the game, Shane. It's like everybody's got some bats this time of year. Obviously, there's some lineups that are more gaudy than others, but it comes down to pitching. If you've got enough arms, you can win this thing. Let's not forget a year ago it was Texas and Arizona. I mean, who saw that coming? No, I don't think there's any team left that can't really win it. I think that at this stage in the game, you got there for a reason. You're playing good baseball, and if you've got enough arms, you can win it.
And then Friday night, back in LA, the Dodgers and the Padres play game 5 to see who goes and plays the Mets. So
Go San Diego.
good stuff. Good stuff as always in playoff baseball. All right, let's get to some college football here with Mike Morgan.
Let's do it.
Boy, last weekend, Mike, you've been covering college football a long time. Can you ever remember a weekend like last weekend?
We were talking about this on JC and Morgan, which I know we've got some of your audience that tunes in, and hopefully we'll have some more folks too. We love all newcomers on the college football pod. That usually these type of weekends, these upset Saturdays or whatever moniker you want to give them, they would happen in November. They would happen like the season's just going along, September, October, and you think you got it all figured out, and then boom, it's one of those crazy November Saturdays where 5 of the top 10, whatever, lose. And in this case, I think it was 5 or 6 of the top 11. Miami should have been part of that group, but they were not. Thank you, Cal. But I think that I think it's what college football needs more of, Shane. Honestly, we have gotten into such a point where, again, on the podcast, we call it the cabal. It's like the same teams with the same massive resources playing for the title every year. And it seems like we have fewer and fewer upsets. I'm not saying we don't have any. Of course, we have some, but it's been a lot of chalk. And I miss the days where you had some Saturday where the apple cart was completely rocked by all these massive upsets. And obviously, we had that. The Vandy, Alabama one is just beyond comprehension. I cannot believe that happened. And Kalen DeBoer is going to figure out. This is why some people, like a Mike Norvell, for example, turn the job down. The Alabama job, if you've already got a good one, it ain't for everybody because you're never going to do what Nick Saban did. Never. And the moment you lose a game like that, they're going to say, and they have been saying now for 5 days, well, Nick would have never lost a game like that. You know what? They're right. He lost some games, but he didn't lose a game like Vanderbilt. And so they're still going to get in the playoff, I think. But that is the one that just jumped out. I was like, whoa. Did that after beating Georgia and with Jalen Milroe? I mean, I'm a Heisman voter. I'll be honest with you. Going into that game, he was at the top of my board. I don't know now. I mean, we have to see. He had 2 costly turnovers in that game. The defense is the reason why they really lost. They can't stop anybody. They'll play South Carolina this Saturday, but that's the one that stood out to me above anything else that went down on a crazy Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, there's been some great upsets over the years. App State beat Michigan, and even when Georgia Southern beat Florida here, we weren't a very good football team.
Oof.
But there's nothing like Vanderbilt beating the number 1 team in America.
The number 1 team. Did you ever think you would see that?
Never.
I mean, and you played there. I would wager there was 80% Alabama fans.
Easily.
Right?
I think the only people there were a few students who ended up taking the goalpost down to the river. But yeah, it's at least 80% Alabama. Andy's question to you was, he wants to know, brought to you by Facebook Live, brought to you by Meldon Law. Your thoughts on Diego Pavia, and do you think Vandy makes a bowl game?
Yes, I think they get to 6, which is a massive accomplishment. And I'm happy for Clark Lee. I've done some of his games. He's a great guy, bleeds Vanderbilt. But what they did, Shane, and this is a lesson for a lot of programs and a lot of coaches out there, Clark Lee was going nowhere fast. Okay. They were 0-8 in the SEC. If there is such a thing as a hot seat at Vanderbilt, he was kind of on it, even though the last thing they wanted to do was fire one of their own. But what he recognized, his whole background's in defense. So he hires a guy by the name of Jerry Kill. And if you notice, when Pavia was interviewed, the first thing he did was thank Jerry Kill. Jerry Kill was his guy at New Mexico State. They won 10 games. You ever been to Las Cruces, New Mexico, Shane?
Never been there. Never been there.
You're not missing much. I did a game there once because they played Colin Kaepernick in Nevada, so they put it on ESPN2. I thought I was in another country. Las Cruces. Anybody can win in Las Cruces. So Jerry Kill and Diego Pavia put together 10 wins. And Pavia, you could have gotten for a nickel in the portal, as opposed to like 800 grand for DJU over at Florida State, because he's 5'10" and a quarter. He's not, they run a unique offense, but that unique offense, speaking of Nevada, they brought in some other coaches that worked with Coach Alt and the pistol formation at Nevada back in the day. And you know this, I mean, the pistol, it's almost like the veer with a shotgun. It's somewhat of a gimmicky offense, and you run it when you don't have a dominating offensive line and those kind of athletes, and there's all kinds of motion and this and that. And it just fit Pavia to a T. And Jerry Kiel is an excellent coach. He's had health issues. They bring all those guys in. They revamp the offense. And that's why Vanderbilt is having success this year. Nobody wants to play them right now. Pavia is an outstanding story. The kid has got more moxie than your average 4 or 5-star quarterback coming out of high school. And he and Jerry Kiel are the biggest reasons why they've turned that thing around.
Yeah, Jerry Kill, he's a hell of a football coach. He's at Minnesota for all those years, did a great job, kept having the seizures or what have you, retired. Then he goes, he's just one of those ball coaches that can't stay out of the game. And kudos to Clark Lee for hiring him. And I've said this, and people have taken shots at me, but I don't care, Mike.
I know that.
Pavia is the poor man's Tim Tebow.
Yeah, I'd buy that.
Because, he runs over people. He makes throws. They're not great. They turn out to be great. He's not a great thrower. Nobody ever convinced me he's a good thrower. He's a damn good football player, and his team believes in him.
100%. And you did say poor man's Tim Tebow. So let that be known. We're not saying he's Tim Tebow, but the way he wins games and the way he overcomes his deficiencies. Now Tebow had the size, obviously, but Tim was never a pure passer in the truest sense. That's why he didn't last in the NFL. But Tim Tebow in the intangible category, and the Tim Tebow as a overall runner was damn effective, and you weren't gonna outlead him. That's a great first time I've heard that. I want to steal that, Shane. You obviously
don't watch this show every day, Mike.
I do watch. No, I watch it. I just never caught you. Usually, I'm just trying to hear you over my man JC, who I enjoy. You guys are like an old married couple going at it every day. But I didn't catch that little tidbit. I'm going to use that though.
Yeah. Let's talk about Arkansas, Tennessee this past week. Arkansas upsets Tennessee. The Gators are traveling to Tennessee. Got a bunch of questions here. People want to know, how is Squirrel, White, and Brew McCoy both probable? Is that gamesmanship, or did they receive a miracle shot? I didn't see the game. I know they both were injured. I don't know what kind of injury. Do you know, Mike, what happened to those two receivers?
No, and I did catch your interview with Bob Kessling earlier this week, and it sounds like he doesn't know a ton more either, because what these coaches do now, they're so hidden, and people are like, oh, well, at least now we have an injury report released by the SEC. Yeah, but coaches can always just put questionable or doubtful or probable, and so you give yourself wiggle room. We know they're banged up. I mean, that's legit. I don't think that's a pure smokescreen. But I don't know how effective they'll be once they play, assuming that they do play. Really don't know. But Tennessee could certainly use them. And that's another story this year, Shane, that I'm a little surprised at, is that Tennessee's offense, like their defense has led the way, but their offense has gone south. And it does go to show you, too, one thing about as talented as Nico is, he's only got a handful of starts under his belt. And that inexperience shows. I mean, you've got a situation where all you have to do is throw it in the end zone, the final play of the game, and you got a good chance of winning. I mean, he's at like the 20. He runs out of bounds with the clock going
Yeah.
to zero. You don't make that mistake when you're a sophomore, junior, and you started 15 games. But you see guys like him, you see guys like Lenora Sellers, these young, uber talented athletes. But when you hadn't been there, done that, it shows up. And I think for Tennessee, they're winning a lot of games before that, and they might win a lot more. But Nico hasn't been the just superstar that I think a lot of people thought he would be. That inexperience has shown up at times.
Text on the Titan More text line. This is from Gator Guy. He says, blueprint to beat Tennessee. Stop or slow down Sampson, but it will take committing safety on an extra D lineman in the box. Man up the DBs as they are our best players on the team. And if you don't have Squirrel or Brew, they're a very different team. On obvious downs, make sure you have an extra guy rushing. If you hurry this young kid, I think he said passing downs. It makes a big
Is that
difference.
Billy Napier? Is Billy Napier writing into the show? That's an
He may
extensive
be.
scouting report, man.
Yes.
I agree with that,
what,
by the way. Heavy box,
yeah.
and you don't let them run all over you.
Yeah, I mean, because that's what Josh Heupel and them want to do. And Bob Kessling talked about they haven't played at the pace that they've played back with Hendon Hooker for whatever reason,
Yeah.
and that's what caused so many defenses problems. We had trouble lining up against Mississippi State with their speed of their offense, or pace, I should say. I'll be anxious to see if Heupel goes back to playing fast, because that's where guys get confused and guys are just running wide open. So,
yeah.
But the Gators cannot stop the run. It will be a long day, a very, very
really
long
day.
Long day.
And I don't, this game to me is more about what Florida does than Tennessee does. And Florida, with all due respect to UCF, they're not a very good football team. KJ Jefferson looks like he's had a steady diet of beer and fettuccine Alfredo for the last couple of years. He's put on a lot of weight. He's not the same player he was at Arkansas 3 years ago or so, when everybody thought he could be a really good player. They're not good on the line. You saw that against Colorado, where they got manhandled. So really, Florida hasn't played, in my estimation, a good football team in nearly a month, and it didn't go real well. So I'm sure a number of the people in your audience, a lot of them, no matter what happens, they are already like, I don't care. It's kind of like when you're dating somebody and they're through with you, and you just keep giving them flowers and chocolates and maybe an occasional back rub, being the romantic that you are, Shane. But at the end of the day, she's already said, I'm out. I'm looking for the next best thing. And a lot of the fan base that I talk to, and I know that you talk to, and watching your show, they're already resigned to the fact that they're ready for a change. But then you've got that other part that's like, hey, maybe this is not so bad. Hey, maybe if we beat Tennessee, hey, if we finish up strong and beat some heavyweights left on this schedule, then you get Lagway coming back, and then I don't think that's the majority, and I don't think it even matters if you start losing some of these games. And to me, on the road at Tennessee is going to be a heck of a challenge for a Florida football team that, again, hasn't really beaten a quality team yet.
Agree. Champion your recovery with Core Power, delicious high-quality protein to build muscles and electrolytes to help hydrate. Core Power, replenish, repair, and rebuild. Good friend Mike Morgan here on the Titan More Highline, courtesy of Comfort Temp. Here's what I said the other day on my show, and people say, well, you say that after every time we beat a team. UCF is not good, people.
No.
Mississippi State is not good.
They're awful.
Yeah, I've come out and I've predicted Mississippi State may win one more game this year. That would be against UMass. They will not win an SEC game. And then I do not think UCF is going to win another game. I really don't. I looked at their schedule. They have BYU, Iowa State, Cincinnati. I mean, they got some good teams that are, I should say, teams that are better than they are. I was shocked when I saw UCF in person. And a lot of it has, if they make a quarterback change, I don't know who their backup quarterback is, but that could make a difference, because KJ is no threat to run and he's no threat to pass. No. That's a bad combination when you're the quarterback.
Those two things are pretty important, Shane. I mean, I didn't play the position like you, but I think they're important.
Yeah, it's a terrible combination. Mike, I want to get your thoughts. Big game, the Magnolia Bowl, LSU Ole Miss. Lane's taking his crew to Tiger Stadium. It's a night game. Just your thoughts on these two teams. Both of them, LSU's kind of sputtered around. They haven't played great this year. Nussmeier's putting up big numbers. How do you see this game playing out?
I'm a big Nussmeier guy. I'm a big Nussmeier guy. He's not Jaden Daniels, obviously, but he's pretty damn good. He can make
Mhm.
all the throws. He does not make very many mistakes. You blitz him, he senses pressure. He finds the right guy. He's athletic enough. He's not a statue in the pocket. Now they don't have two top 10 type receiving talents like they did a year ago, but Lacey is obviously a stud. Their running backs are young, but they're good as well. I actually like LSU in a mild upset in that game. I think
Mhm.
LSU, everybody just kind of forgotten about LSU. They just kind of like the disappointing loss again in week one. What is it, 5 in a row now? They've lost openers 5 years in a row, which is unheard of for a program like LSU. And they were fortunate to beat South Carolina. There were some key penalties late in that game. So everybody's like, Brian Kelly, LSU, let's go on to another story. LSU can make things pretty interesting here down the stretch. And it all starts if they can beat Ole Miss at home. And that would be my pick. I just think it's nothing to take away from Ole Miss. I just think LSU is due for a game like this under Coach Kelly.
Text here on the Titan Tomorrow text line for William. He says, Mike, in your opinion, or who would you want the Gators to hire if they do make a coaching change?
Lane Kiffin 1, Lane Kiffin 2, Lane Kiffin 3. I mean, is this even close? Like to me, it's the guy that fits. I talk about this quite a bit on the show. Programs have a certain DNA. Florida's DNA is high octane offense, uh, quarterbacks that are Heisman Trophy candidates, putting up big numbers, making big plays, swagger, all these things. Look, I think what every Florida fan wants is the closest thing reincarnated to Steve Spurrier. And the closest thing to that in today's game is Lane Kiffin. I don't even know what plan B would be. So I mean, I know some of the names out there, and I know Coach Chadwell. I mean, I've called some of his games. I saw him at the Spurrier event back in February. Shane, the first year awards that Steve's done. Uh, I know some people have talked about him. I'm like you. I'm a big Brom guy. I do love Coach Brom, and I know it's his alma mater. But at some point, you have to realize the resources at Louisville, especially without old Papa John running things, they're never going to be what they are at Florida. There's two titanic forces going head to head if there is a change, and we'll stress the word if, Shane. Number one, there's the massive amount of resources in recent history and tradition. You don't have to go back to the 40s when Florida was really good, and money and exposure, and Florida is a brand. So that's the thing that if you're the leadership there and the big money boosters, you kind of puff your chest out a little bit and you say, hey, we're Florida. You realize all this. You see those trophies. You see those Heisman Trophy uh, winners. You see all the records in the SEC. You see the names. And then there's this other force that says, and I hear this a lot now, Shane, from non-Florida folks. Well, if it's such a damn good job, how come nobody's winning there lately? Seems to me like it's gotten a little toxic. Seems to me like, what was Florida before Steve Spurrier and what has Florida been after Urban Meyer? Maybe that was just one stretch in time. I don't believe that. I just don't. I think Florida has a ton going for it. They just haven't found the right guy at the right time. But that is certainly out there. If both those forces are going head to head, and any coach that gets attention for that job is going to look at it and he's going to say two things. Number one, it's a great job. Then number two, I got to look myself in the mirror and say, well, how come nobody's been doing great things there for the last decade plus? And,
Mhm.
how confident are you in your ability to get it turned back around?
I agree with all that. Here's Rob. Rob always gives me jabs. I like reading Rob's stuff here on YouTube, brought to you by Quality. He says, I guarantee if UF beats the Vols, Shane will say that Tennessee was not very good, and Nicole, his name is Nico, is not a good QB. You can book it. I will tell you right now, Rob, Tennessee is a damn good football team, extremely talented, well coached, And if we beat them, I will say, hell yeah, we beat a good football team. But Rob, I promise you, if you know anything about football and you watch Sanford and you watch Mississippi State and you watch UCF, anybody that knows football will tell you those teams are not good at all. It's that
Yeah,
simple.
yeah. We're not going to put Tennessee in the same bucket as Mississippi State and UCF. Mississippi State
No, I
is
mean,
the worst team in the
it,
league. There's no debate about that, and UCF just isn't that good.
yeah, UCF will be like dead last in the Big 12 when it's all said and done. So, Rob, appreciate you listening to the show, but you're way off base there,
And
pal.
Tennessee is good, and you're right. If,
They're
if
damn good.
Florida
They are
if
damn
Florida
good.
wins that game, much respect, much props. That tells me something. That truly tells me this thing, compared to the beginning, is turned a corner. But beating Mississippi State and UCF doesn't say that. That doesn't say that to me at this point.
I can't tell you how bad those teams are in person. I was
Well, no,
shocked.
I listened. When a Shane Matthews says that Mississippi State might be the worst SEC football team I've ever seen, yeah, that's a strong statement.
Yeah.
They're
And
clearly, and I feel for Jeff Levy. He inherited an absolute mess right there at
he
Starkville.
did.
They got to get players.
And here's a good thing about Levy. He's a good football coach. And all
Mm.
he's doing now is running the football and shortening the game.
Yeah,
And that's what they did against Texas. Texas had a couple of turnovers, and Texas only had the ball for like barely 20 minutes the entire game.
right.
And they still won the game. So he's going to shorten the game, try to give his kids a chance, but they're bad. It's a bad football team.
Shane, don't you think it's weird? I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I just got to say this about the game this Saturday. I mean, I remember in the 90s, Florida Tennessee in September was such a massive event. CBS would lock that thing down as the premier game of the week. So much was riding on it. So much talent was on it, and very often that was the game that would get you to Atlanta, if not win the SEC championship eventually. And to see what that game has become now, Tennessee's on an uptick, and we'll see how they do this year with lofty expectations. But this game needs to get back to like one of the premier games in college football, if not the SEC, right? It's just
no,
weird with this game, kind of like, oh yeah, it's a thing, but it's not one of the big things because as of right now, Florida is not a marquee team. That needs to change. This thing needs to be back to one of the best early games on the college football slate.
I agree. Silverback Concrete builds firm foundations for generations. You stand on it, we stand by it. A few more minutes with Mike Morgan here. Titan MR Hotline, courtesy of Comfort Temp. Text on the Titan MR text line from Jonathan. Mike, what are your thoughts on Kirk Signetti?
Love him. Think he's done an outstanding job and did a great job at JMU as well. So he's not a one-trick pony. The problem with him is just his age. And I hate to say that, but when you're 64, somewhere in there,
Is that how old he is?
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, he's not a young buck. Because he's got a long lineage as an assistant coach as well. I just don't know if he's going to get the type of attention that he would have, 15 years ago, let's just say. But if you're just talking about a guy who can coach ball, what he has done at Indiana is one of the best coaching jobs this year, bar none. I had to look up the other day. We were talking about him. I was like, I don't even know who their quarterback is. And I had to look him up. He's some kid from Canada who transferred in from a small school, but like he's just a no-name guy. He's not some like NIL thing. I mean, I don't even know how much NIL money they have for football at Indiana. Maybe like a couple $100, but I mean, they're winning with just two stars across the board at Indiana. I think it's one of the best stories of the year, and he's one of the best. He's done one of the best coaching jobs of the year. I just don't know if the time is right for him to be able to cash in on a quote unquote bigger job. And Indiana will take good care of him. Indiana, I mean, I say that jokingly. They've got money. Every school in the Big Ten's got that TV money now, so they can pay him pretty well.
Barry on the Titan MR text, and it's very long, so I'm going to kind of paraphrase it. He wanted to get your thoughts on what happened at UNLV with their quarterback, and your thoughts on these guys that are opting out, so-called redshirting.
Yeah, it's a problem. like one of, right now, all the SEC and Big Ten athletic directors are meeting in Nashville, and they're this Project Rudy thing, and we won't get into all that, but there's so many things that need to be improved, and this is one of them. You can't have South Carolina just had a kid that went to Shane Beamer and said, I decided I wanted to redshirt coach, and coach is like, well, if you do that, you're gone. And that's what more coaches have to do. If a player looks at his clock and he sees, okay, you're at that 4 or 5 game threshold and you want to hold out for this, that, and the other. If you're a coach with some self-respect, you let the kid know, I'm sorry, we don't run things that way. You're either all in or you're all out. So there's the door. Don't let it hit you where the good Lord split you. I think that's. I know the UNLV situation's a little murky because he says he was promised 100 grand and didn't get 100 grand. I've heard multiple sides to that story. But I know one thing, Barry Odom, who I've covered when he was in the SEC at Missouri, is a stand-up guy and a stand-up coach. And I don't think he backed out of anything. And he's trying to just coach a football team, and a good one at that. So I'm glad to see they were still able to win a game after that. I know they lost one since, but to win the game after that, after the young man decided to bail.
Yeah, it's a crazy world we are in right now. All
You
right, before
did
we
that,
let you
dude.
go,
You went to Steve right after maybe a tough loss, or you saw that okay, this is my red shirt. Steve, I'm thinking of leaving. If you can't pony up some more money, I've got some other offers. Why do you think Steve would have handled that?
he would have said, "All right, my man, good luck to you.
Good luck to you.
We'll win with you or without you."
Without you. Eric Kresser, where's Eric Kresser at?
That's right. That's exactly right. Let's chat a little bit real quick about the NFL. Chiefs just keep winning. They're going to continue winning as long as Pat Mahomes and Andy Reid are there. They're not playing great, but they're finding ways to win. Anything stood out to you so far in the early part of the NFL season?
Well, it starts with the defending champions, and you're right. It's like, and then you lose Rashee Rice, and and Travis Kelce is not the same player, and still they're as long as you got Andy Reid and Pat Mahomes, you're winning a lot of games. And oh, by the way, Chris Jones is one of the best defensive players in the league. Whenever you need a big play on defense, that big old bear makes a stop. I mean, I had to laugh for years. The Eric Bieniemy. When they lose Eric Bieniemy now, Eric Bieniemy wasn't designing that offense at all. Like that was if you wanted Eric Bieniemy to be promoted, you could run that story. But the truth of the matter is, Andy Reid's one of the best play callers this sport has ever seen, and he always comes up with. I watch them and I marvel, Shane, because I'm just like a football nerd, and I sit there and I'm like, okay, look at this motion, look at this formation, he always is coming up with something new, always. And it's like the players are the players, but he's going to out scheme people. And there's very few people left in football, I feel like, that do that. It's all about the Jimmies and the Joes. With him, he's got a Hall of Fame and one of the best ever to do it, Patrick Mahomes. But so much of it is his innovation on offense. So I love the Chiefs in the AFC still. I wish Josh Allen had more talent around him, but he doesn't. So I can't consider them a legitimate threat in the AFC. In the NFC, gosh, where do we start? I don't know if there's a great team. I don't know if there's a dominating team, Shane, in the end. I mean, San Francisco is always a safe pick, right? They're going to play D. Overall their offense is good enough, but I just can't find a team right now that I think is on Kansas City's level. The Vikings are a great story, but I don't know how Sam Darnold, really? How long is that going to last? How long is that defense going to keep forcing takeaways and getting turnovers? I just don't know if that's realistic. I think Kansas City is clearly the number one team to repeat at this point.
Yeah. Andy on the Facebook Live brought to you by Melon Law. He's a Chicago guy. He wanted your opinion, saying, did the Bears make a mistake taking Caleb Williams instead of Jaden Daniels, or is it too early to tell?
I am a Jaden guy. I'm not going to sit here and say I told you so, but Jaden Daniels, to me, and he's another guy, by the way. Look back at how many games did he start? it's like 50 something, I believe. If you go back to Arizona State and LSU, so he came in NFL ready. He'd already played in multiple offenses with multiple coordinators, and he started a ton of games. And oh, by the way, athletically speaking, he's got it all. He's got it all. So yeah, if you could do a redo on that, obviously Jaden Daniels would be the top guy. I see Drake May starting this Sunday. That'll be another one of these rookies. Spencer Rattler's getting a start for New Orleans. I did the math on this, Shane. There will be 8 former SEC quarterbacks starting in the NFL this Sunday. And if Bryce Young ever gets his job back in Carolina, speaking of train wrecks, and if Tua clears concussion protocol in a few weeks, gets off IR, that would be 10 SEC quarterbacks out of 32 teams. Tell me if that's ever happened.
That's pretty cool. No question about it. All right, couple of comments. I want you to chime in on them before you get out of here. Eat Chucky says on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plum. Mississippi State and Tennessee run the same offense, except Tennessee has way more elite players. Not a good matchup for UF. Great point.
Well, I don't disagree with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And of course, Levy is part of that same
Yep.
tree or whatever. So yeah, very
And
similar concepts.
Clayton on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mel Law, says Ole Miss loses most of their starters, so it's the perfect time for Lane to leave. They're all in. This all in was their motto this year, basically.
Well, yeah, because Dart's gone. He'll be a high pick. Juice Wells gone. The top receiver name just eluded me.
There's number 9. I know who you're talking about.
You know I'm talking about.
Trey
Harris.
Trey Harris.
Right. Gone. Defensively, they got the Nolan kid gone. Like, so yeah. I mean, the stars are aligned. And again, the job is not open, but theoretically, if it was, and I know you have sources better than anybody on this, the stars are aligned. If Lane ever wanted to make a move and just decided, you know what, I've done the best I can here in Oxford, but I could do more in Florida. And maybe I prefer the state of Florida to Mississippi. Maybe I prefer Gainesville to Oxford. Who knows? That's a personal decision. But the stars would be aligned if he ever was going to make that move. It would be the time.
Yeah, I agree. Mike, let everybody know how they can listen to your podcast.
Yes, JC and Morgan. We're on, just like you, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Spotify, all that good stuff. It's weekly, not a daily. We don't work as hard as you do, Shane. You know that. We go a little bit longer, though, once a week. And it's just 2 guys talking college football year round. So we'd love to have you if you love college football. We'll take good care of you each week.
Yeah. One last thing. I know you're a hoop junkie. College basketball has already started practice a couple of weeks ago. The SEC is going to be loaded this year. You think Alabama's the team to beat?
I think Alabama is the team to beat, maybe not just in the SEC, but yes. I filled out I'll be at Media Days next week, and then we've got our seminar a week later. I filled out my first team all SEC, and I will tell you I had Walter Clayton on it, and I believe I had another Gator on it. And it's early for me, Shane. I just lost my train of thought on the other one I had. The Aussie. Condon. Yeah, I had Condon either first or second team, because I believe from people I talked to, he's really explode. The concern with Clayton will be, he doesn't have Poland along to take the pressure off him and run point. But if Clayton's going to make it to the next level, he's probably going to have to prove that he can play some point guard. I think Florida's really good, and I've got them, I don't know, top 5. But even as I'm filling it out 1 through 16, Shane, I fill out teams like number 9 and 10. I look at it, I'm like, they could be tournament teams. I mean, I think the SEC, they got 8 last year. I think it could be 9 or 10 this year. It is a loaded league, but I think Coach Golden's doing a hell of a job. And I think they have the right combination of players this year where they can do some damage, not just be a great story late, but a team that can be good early, sustain it. They've got depth, which is important now more than ever in college basketball. And this year, hopefully make a run in March.
Yeah, should be a lot of fun. Well, we appreciate you taking the time, Mike. We'll get you back on and make sure everybody listens to your podcast and should be a fun rest of the football season,
Yeah.
baseball. So we'll see what
Look
happens
forward
with the
to,
Mighty Gators.
yeah, it'll be a fun one. I'll be watching it, if not live on the DVR where I can, and we'll see if Florida can turn an upset out. And look forward to chatting with you in the future.
All right, that's Mike Morgan. Join us on the Titan More Hotline, courtesy of Comfort Tent. Quick timeout. Come back, get to some more comments, questions, and text. You're watching, listening. PodUp Matthews in the morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. We'll be right back. We want to take this moment to thank our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills.
Our premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, Titan MRI, Meldon Law, Peachland Dental, QC Kinetics, Campus USA Credit Union, Dave & Buster's. Gridiron sponsors, Comfort Temp, UF Bookstores, Quality Plumbing, Silverback Concrete, Ruse Ogra State Farm, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, F45, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Miapa Latin Cafe, Gator Bait Media, Aikido America, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, Big Mills Cheesesteaks, 84 Lumber, Dowling Signs, Baker's Sporting Goods, MG&A Wealth, Florida Cracker Kitchen, Nest and Wild, Florida Victorious, Electronics World.
If you're interested in promoting your business on the show, call Freddie at 352-284-3733. If you like what we're doing here, make sure to follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Pro football legend Emmitt Smith understands your joint pain.
It does not surprise me that there are a ton of people out there that's in pain.
That's why Emmitt is such a proponent of QC Kinetics, offering real lasting joint pain relief with non-surgical, all-natural biologic treatments.
Whether it's a joint pain, ankle pain, shoulder pain, neck pain, back pain, hip pain, any kind of pain, the body eventually will break down when it's under that much stress.
That stress can cloud your judgment to the point that you'll just say yes to the scalpel or yes to another prescription of pain pills. But maybe it's time for a second opinion from QC Kinetics.
The reason why I would recommend this is because the natural biologics that QC Kinetics is providing you gives your body a chance to naturally heal itself.
Restorative, regenerative solutions are here. Get lasting relief and live your life.
Call QC Kinetics 352-400-4550. That's 352-400-4550. QC Kinetics 352-400-4550.
Hi there, this is Coach Steve Spurrier, and I want to let you know that by popular demand, Spurrier's Gridiron Grill's delicious brunch is now served in a premium buffet. You have spoken, we have listened, and we're now serving Gainesville's only elevated buffet, complete with an omelet station, ginger sage chicken sausage, shredded short rib, and of course our chicken and waffles. Plus, you can enjoy bottomless mimosas and Bloody Marys. So join us every Saturday and Sunday from 11 to 3 for the best brunch in town.
Welcome back to the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Miapa Latin Cafe. Discover the ultimate Cuban culinary experience at Miapa Latin Cafe with 5 locations in Gainesville and Alachua. You're never far from the best Cuban food north of Miami. Again, I want to thank our buddy Mike Morgan, who's gearing up for SEC basketball on ESPN, the SEC network. Appreciate him chiming in. Make sure you go check out his podcast. Got a lot of questions and comments here. Let me figure out which one I'm going to get to. First, we're going to get to This Day in Sports, brought to you by Campus USA Credit Union. Put some star power to work in your financial life at Campus USA Credit Union. 1994, the Giants, the New York Giants, the football Giants, retired Lawrence Taylor's number 56. That's This Day in Sports, brought to you by Campus USA Credit Union. Text here on the Titan MR text line from Lawrence. Lawrence says, Shane, if you were running the Gator offense, what would be some of your favorite formations? Well, you can only have so many formations, but you can run the same formations with different personnel grouping. You know, whether you're in 11 personnel, 12 personnel, you can go 10 personnel, you can go 0 personnel, which means you just have 5 straight wide receivers. You can put one of those wide receivers in the backfield. You can go 2 by 2 with a receiver in the backfield. So there's different ways you can do it. I've always liked to be on teams to be creative. we got a little more creative in the last game. We went empty. I'm not going to say five wides, but empty, meaning nobody in the backfield. We threw some wide receiver screens to Tank Hawkins, which was something that we haven't done at all. So my biggest complaint, if it is a complaint, is we have called the game offensively different against Samford, Mississippi State, and UCF. We were way more aggressive in the play calling. I don't know if that's because we felt like we could run by them and have big explosive plays in the passing game, because we didn't do that against A&M or Miami. We're going to have to do that Saturday night, or we're going to get blown out of the building. They regardless of what Arkansas did, Tennessee is a very good football team. Tennessee's explosive on offense. They're struggling right now, but the strength of Tennessee's football team right now is their defense. Their front four is probably, if not the best, one of the best in America. So it's going to be a tough challenge for the Gators to go into Neyland Stadium at night. One of the best places in America to play. Somebody asked about Micah Hanlockton, the big 7-foot center that broke his leg. I think that was in the SEC tournament. He is redshirting this year. Someone also asked on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plumbing, how the red shirt works. It's Barone says, how does the red shirt work in basketball? Is it 4 games? No, it's more than 4 games. I'm not sure. We'll ask Chris Harry that question next time he's on. Good question. But I do not know the answer to that. Barone also says, I like to see more QB under center formations, not just for Florida, but in modern day football. Yeah. We get under center some, more than most teams. Michael says, Shane, did they shorten the December transfer portal window? I thought I'd heard. They did something with it, Mike. I'll be honest with you, I don't follow that. When we get Graham Hall, Edgar, one of those guys on, we'll ask them that as well. But we got tonight, as I mentioned earlier, if you're a baseball fan, we have Guardians, Tigers at 6:00 Eastern time. Tigers lead that series 2-1. Yankees are up 2-1 over the Royals. That game's tonight. And then tomorrow, the deciding game, Game 5, Dodgers, Padres, to see who faces the New York Mets. Tonight's NFL game, you got the Niners traveling to Seattle. JC and I did our Peachland Dental picks, and our thoughts go out to our man Joe Lawson from Peachland Dental. Hopefully, I need to text Joe. He was going to ride it out down there in Port Charlotte area. But we both picked the Seahawks in our Peachland Dental contest. And then in college football tonight, you got 3 games. You got James Madison, who's coming off an upset loss to Monroe. They're hosting Coastal Carolina. You got La Tech in Middle Tennessee, Western Kentucky, and UTEP. You had football on last night. Jacksonville State destroyed New Mexico State. That's Diego Pavia played for them last year. Tony, who's a big hockey fan, says the Stars run to Lord Stanley starts tonight. So yes, hockey's in full effect. NBA will be starting here pretty soon. You got all the sports going on right now. Barone wants to bring back the fullback. Quality lead blocking out of the backfield is a missing art in today's game. Very true. It's hard to find fullbacks, Barone, because nobody uses them anymore, not even at the high school level for the most part. Electronics World, integration and design specialist for smart home automation and entertainment. Affordable local installation, service, and support at electronicsworld.net. Tighten our text line from Josh. He says, Shane, what do you think the Gator defense needs to do to slow down the Vols? Well, we got to get lined up. That is the key. Again, Tennessee, if you heard the interview yesterday with Bob Kessling, the voice of the Vols, he says they have not played at the normal pace that Tennessee has played with in the past. For whatever reason, he doesn't know. He thinks it may be because of Nico. If they go fast, we must stay in a base defense, get lined up, and play ball. You can't be confused looking at the sideline, them snapping, and the guy running right by you in the secondary. That's what happened there 2 years ago when we were there. They had guys running wide open all over the field. Was that 2 years ago or 3 years ago? I can't remember, but it would have to be 2 years ago. So I would look at what Arkansas did. Now, I don't know from our personnel standpoint how our personnel is similar to Arkansas's defense. I know nothing about Arkansas's defense, but they obviously frustrated Tennessee in some capacity. So the NFL is a copycat league. It's perfectly legal to take what they did and implement it into our plan. But it's all going to come down to Tennessee wants to run the football. They're going to spread you from sideline to sideline and try to run between the tackles. If we do that and we can control their run game, we have a chance. But if they are gashing us, it could be a long, long night. Long night. Nat says on Facebook Live, brought to you by Mel Law, the last fullback at Florida was Billy Latsko. Yeah, back in like 06, 08 on the national championship teams. They just don't have them anymore. Lee says on YouTube, brought to you by Quality Plumbing, I think UF gets the win against the Vols Saturday. Just kidding. Look, it'd be a great win. But Tennessee is a very, very good football team, and we got our work cut out for us. Doesn't mean we can't win the game. Go up there and we got to come out firing. Have to come out firing. If we don't do that, it could be a long, long night. Daryl says on the Titan MR text line, he stopped at the ballpark in Atlanta, got his grandson some Braves gear for Christmas. It's a beautiful ballpark. Yeah, unfortunately, they're not playing. So congratulations to the Mets. I got some friends that are big Mets. You know, Pete Alonso's on that team, former Gator. So congratulations to him. They're moving on. Who would ever thought the Mets would be playing to go to the World Series? Michael says, I did see half the roof on Tropicana Field, home of the Tampa Bay Rays, was ripped completely off in the storm last night. Yeah, it was. I don't think the storm was as bad. I mean, it was horrible, but it wasn't as bad as they predicted. So I know Tampa was flooded. Siesta Key got hit pretty hard. So hopefully all our listeners and friends in that area evacuated and didn't hang out. And of course, our great producer, Zach, is showing a picture right now of Tropicana Field. How about that, folks? How about that? Eat Chucky is a very negative guy. He says the next win for UF will be the Florida State game. Well, we need to beat those jokers. We need to beat them for sure. Florida Cracker is the brand for original Floridians. Great food and Southern hospitality in the center of the universe, Brooksville, Florida. FloridaCracker.com. Again, I want to thank Mike Morgan for joining the program. We'll have Brent Beard tomorrow do our college football roundup. We'll also have JC live from Dallas. He's going to the OU Texas game, but we'll do our Peachland Dental college football weekend picks tomorrow. Hope everybody enjoyed the program. Hope everybody's safe out there, and we'll see you tomorrow, folks. Take care.